Okay, so Bijani, first of all, welcome to the podcast. And also, I assume in general, it's hard to teach high school students anything, literally anything. But how do you teach the Odyssey to high
Mm,
schoolers? How does this work?
Can I just
mm.
say I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Matt and Jason, for having me.
We're excited to have you. What?
Yeah, it's gonna be great. And this is one of my favorite books to teach. And
Good.
to your question, teaching high school students is a challenge for sure. I mean, I think you want to find ways for them to connect to the material as best as you can.
Mm.
It's really hard to do that with a 2,500-year-old epic poem about a hero whose values are very different than our modern day values. But I they are a lot of times they connect with Telemachus, right? And the
Hmm.
Telemachy, the beginning of the story is so much about his journey into adulthood and
Right, right.
dividing himself and his selfhood from his parents and specifically from his mother, who, for good reason kind of has
Yeah,
him tucked under her skirts to protect him. And so I think a lot of 14 and 15-year-olds can
can
relate
relate.
to that, like
Yeah.
Mm.
protective parent, the helicopter parent, when they're coming to high school and trying to figure out what does it mean to be me in this brand
Yeah.
new space. Yeah.
I
I
love
would
that.
just be like, look, the gods, this is like the MCU. This is like the first version. These guys are superheroes. They're getting out there making stuff happen.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a scene at the beginning of book 2 where Telemachus is like putting on his armor for the first time because he's got to go to the assembly of Greeks and call the banners to arms. It's the first time he's done anything remotely manlike, and so he like puts on his sandals and he puts on his armor. And I'm always like, think about Batman, right? Batman putting on
Mm.
the bat suit for the first time and just being like, okay, I'm not Bruce Wayne anymore. I'm Batman. And that's kind of
Mm.
Telemachus. Like, I'm not a little boy anymore. I'm my father's son. Yeah.
Putting his sandals on his well-oiled feet. There's a
His
lot of
well-oiled
discussion
feet.
about
Always the
the
oil.
well-oiled
You
feet. Yeah.
can't have an epic poem from Greece without a lot of olive oil references.
I wish I had some oiled feet. I'm up here in dry Central Oregon, and I have my feet. My whole person is very dry as a result. I need like some. I
Uh-huh.
need some oil. I need some ointment.
Yeah, that's some unguent.
Some unguent.
Right.
Well, we are super thrilled. Normally, like we will bullshit for 20 minutes and do all this other stuff because normally we're talking about old movies, but you have so much knowledge on the topic that we're talking about. So I'm going to cut our whole beginning of the episode
Wow.
here really
Wow.
short so that we can.
It's
we
hard
can
for
very-
Matt to do.
It's like no
It-
pressure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no pride, exactly. But we are thrilled to have you on because we are talking about tonight one of the biggest events in cinema for the year 2026. And Jason, that is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey.
Yeah. Yep. It's a big one. It's the biggest movie in the world right now. Might be the
Mm.
biggest movie of the year. Might change movies for all time. Who can say? We're in uncharted territory right now. It's a real situation. It's exciting.
Who can say? Who can say? And we don't normally talk about new releases, but so it's nice to get together and fire it up. We'll talk about how we got here, the hurdles, our own Odyssey that we had to get to make it happen. But that is at the bottom of the hour in just a few minutes. Before we get to that, next week on Escape Hatch, the summer of Jason continues.
Unbelievable, the summer of Jason.
It does not get more Jason than this, as we do one of my least favorite Coen Brothers movies, which I have never revisited ever because I did not like it when I saw it. And that is Barton Fink.
You're going to love it this time. You're going to be a different person than you were before.
I'm very convinced that I'm going to love this movie. I am definitely, I'm ready to get into it. And joining us, he picked it from the list. He had a lot of options. I made him take this over V, The Last Battle, which I told him we'd get to later. But Dave Mandel.
Wow, you just browbeat him into doing. Why didn't you give him Dave V the Last Battle? I would have been as happy doing V the Last Battle.
We'll do it. We'll do it this summer. I wanted to get Barton Fink taken care of. So for you, my gift to you.
You say it's for me, but I don't really think it was for me. There's something you just didn't want to do V the Last Battle for some reason.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready. So we'll get into that.
Now I want the
hopefully.
forbidden fruit. I want the lizard people face. I'm just going to talk about V the Last Battle in the context of Barton Fink now. You can't stop me.
By way of
It might come up in the Odyssey.
So that is next week. Barton Fink. Can we do some quick Hatch news?
Hatch news from me on
Jason, because you demanded it, the Avengers Doomsday trailer dropped. Your thoughts?
I refuse to watch it. I watched some commentary about it, and like I I'm not against like superhero movies like generally. Like I saw the new Spider-Man trailer, and it might just be sort of the hangover from the Odyssey, the Tom Holland hangover of like, oh, like I'm excited to see more Tom Holland. I thought the Spider-Man trailer looked great. And like we're kind of watching all the Spider-Man movies with the kids. I'm like, it'll be great. We'll watch all the Spider-Man movies. We'll go see the Spider-Man movie with the kids. That's great. There's something in particular about the Avengers event format that is just doesn't work anymore. Like the like throw all of the heroes into the movie, like and like it unites all of the timelines. I'm just like, it's too much. Like no one, like the audience, like it's not like the audience for that doesn't exist. The movie will do business and whatnot, but it's just not for me. And I don't think it's for people broadly. And I think like that whole formula is dead, and they're going to realize it when this movie doesn't do well and like gets crushed by Dune 3, and it will be the end of this kind of event multi-dimensional superhero movie.
How about Robert Downey Jr. doing a bad Latvian accent?
I don't know why that's necessary. I don't know why that's necessary. I heard about, again, I have not heard the accent because I refuse to watch the trailer. Mostly despite you. It's not really a principled stand, but I know he does an accent. I don't know why. I would like none of it to exist. I probably won't see it. I think the chances I go see this in the theater are very, very low.
Bijani, counterpoint, ready.
Just on the spot. I have a little bit of Marvel fatigue. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, it's right there, right up until Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and then after that, I don't know that I've seen a Marvel movie since. And I was really,
Whoa.
I know, it's sacrilege, but I kind of I'm not quite as as poo-pooing it as Jason, but I want to be excited about it, and I am gonna just hold off and see what the next couple of months, see if that increases my hype. The hype. Yeah.
So for listeners, Bijani's kid Theoden goes to school with Sam, and they are part of, like, we watched Lord of the Rings together last year for the first time, and
huge fan of that franchise and the books.
Oh hell yeah, yeah. And so where is Theoden on their journey? Have they watched MCU movies? Like what's that look like?
We've watched a couple of like selected scenes from like Shang-Chi. They really love like the bus scene on Shang-Chi. That was really fun.
Great scene.
We've seen a couple of things from Civil War. Definitely Black Panther. Again, like they're on the younger side, and so I'm trying to like find the fun fight scenes without too much violence a little bit too early. And so but they know all about the Marvel, like everything. Like they dress up as Spider-Man. In fact, they often go to school with Spider-Man costumes underneath their school clothes, and so then they come home on the bus.
That's how I met Theoden. Yeah. Theoden had on the Spider-Man.
Is a huge presence in our lives. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. It's very fun.
Of course.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, we'll stay tuned. I will say the trailer looks absolutely terrible. Like it just looks like garbage. Like all of the footage does not look good. There's way too many characters, and it does not look cool, man. I'll tell you. And especially you compare it right next to Dune 3 trailer. I just gotta say it's a problem. And I think just structurally, it's impossible to have a movie where you have 40 characters.
It doesn't work. It's just become like finishing moves from a fighting game or something. Like it's just like, oh, okay, Gambit and Shang-Chi or whatever. Like I'm just like, I guess, like it's like these like it's like, what did they just use like an LLM to like generate interesting pairings of like superheroes that they had on hand? It's just like it doesn't. Nothing about it says like that this movie cares about the audience at all. Like it says like we have active contempt for the audience and our fans, and we are just trying to cram as much licensed shit into a package as possible. That's very upsetting.
Like I don't know a lot about the backstory, but it feels like these are finishing out people's contracts. Does Chris Hemsworth have like one last movie in his Thor contract that they have to finish out somehow? Or I don't know when Channing Tatum signed that contract to be Gambit, but I remember hearing that news years ago. And so like, is this sort of his like, that
was the whole thing. Like it had been rumored he had tried to make a Gambit movie and it didn't happen. And then when they did Deadpool and Wolverine, it's essentially fan casting, and they
Yeah.
brought him in as Gambit. And for a certain class of people who had been waiting a long time and dreaming of that, it was this incredible fulfillment. So there are people
Sure.
who are legitimately very, very excited about that. For me, it's like the guy's almost 50 years old now. It's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
are we
Like this just
doing?
doesn't make sense. But
Mm.
I'm not happy about it.
we shall see. I do think the other part that is hilarious, the tickets went on sale yesterday. They immediately sold out many of the Infinity Vision
The
screens.
Infinity Vision screens. Come on, man.
Including the Fairfax Theater
Come on.
in Fairfax, California, 8 minutes
What
from
are we
my
doing?
house.
The
which has like
tiniest theater in America, basically.
It does have one decent-sized screen, and they did literally put Atmos in it like last month. So I'm guessing that they did that so that they could get certified. So in that respect, maybe it's a good thing that Marvel's doing this, but it all feels like a giant scam.
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, like, so this is going to be one of my points for the Odyssey is like, what does eventized filmmaking mean? So I'll save it for then. But like, I am concerned about the Marvel approach, which is like, it's going to be this spectacle, but it's a second-rate spectacle. And I do think you could burn people on that. And I think like it could create this, like, I do think it could create like a backlash of like, well, I was told like, you know, like I had to go see this in Infinity Vision and like the movie looked like shit. And so like, why did you do this to me? So yeah, I'm worried about that. Yeah.
Me too. And we watched Guardians of the Galaxy, and the CG was phenomenal. Like it looked so good in 2013. Like they were really, it was before everything was getting farmed out everywhere. I mean, that was starting, but I was shocked at how good that looked. So it is possible to have good looking movies. It can happen. Speaking of, are you guys ready to get into this?
Hell
let's
yeah.
go. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. The Odyssey is the long, punishing road home one man must travel as he reckons with the cost of his actions. 10 years after the fall of Troy, the war hero Odysseus, king of Ithaca, still has not returned home to his kingdom. Waylaid and lost on the wine-dark sea, seemingly by the wrath of the gods for the actions of him and his men, he is presumed dead by nearly everyone except his faithful wife Penelope, who holds his throne against a house full of grasping suitors, and his son Telemachus, who sets out to learn his father's fate. Across 10 years of wandering, Odysseus will face a one-eyed giant, a deadly enchantress, captivity by a goddess, and travel even into the land of the dead itself. Bloodied, disguised, and alone, he will finally wash up on the shores of Ithaca, ready to face his shortcomings, reclaim his home, his wife, and his name, and finally complete the Odyssey.
I give you points for Wine Dark Sea, but I'm gonna have to remove points for the Argus erasure in the synopsis of people who are loyal and waiting for Odysseus, as there was no one more loyal than the dog who was willing to sleep on shit.
Yeah.
And just to fucking die.
I thought about putting the dog in there. I definitely, I'm sorry. Argus, rip. Pour one out for a legend.
Is Argus the dog? Like maybe is this the first like dog character in literature? Like is it like the beginnings of all? Is it like the origin of Air Bud? Like is there like, can we draw like a straight line from Argus the dog in the Odyssey to like Lassie and like other heroic dogs?
What do we have, Bijani?
Wow. I mean,
if I wrote that essay for high school, would that get a good grade? Like the history of literary dogs? Okay.
The through line from Argus to
throwing that
Lassie.
one away to any of your students who are listening.
Yeah. Oh my God. Nice. All right. So let's just start. Bijani, what was your first exposure to the Odyssey?
Actually, my first exposure was my own high school English classroom. And so we read the Fitzgerald back in the day. I won't say exactly how many days back, but yeah, Robert Fitzgerald's translation, the wine dark sea, is one of the famous phrases from that translation. And it just like lit a fire in me. I mean, I was always like a Greek mythology nerd. I had, my favorite book was like D'Olier's Book of Greek Myths. And I would dress up as Athena when I was like little and like run around my backyard and stuff. And so I think
for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think,
wow.
Yeah, I had like a propensity to love these archetypal stories. And so, when you see all of the different ways in which Odysseus goes through a pretty universal human experience, like, yeah, he's got one-eyed giants and yeah, he's got all these, the whirlpool and Scylla and all this stuff that like on the surface seem very distant from where we are today. He's like any of us, where he's just trying to figure out who he is, what his identity is. And I'm fascinating with the idea of like what story he is telling to himself about himself. And I think we all do that. Like the stories we tell ourselves about who we are sometimes don't match up with the actions or the behaviors that we enact in the world. And that was always so fascinating to me, like even as a kid. But it's also just a rollicking story. I mean, it starts slow. You have like the Zeus and Athena conversation at the beginning, where you're kind of like, okay, like where is Odysseus? What's going on? Athena's trying to convince her dad to get Odysseus back from Calypso's island, and then all of a sudden you just like adventure after adventure after adventure. The story that he tells about his voyage home from Troy. It's like, it's an action film. It's amazing. So yeah, I remember just loving reading it, even as a young person.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. And then Jason, what about you?
I love Greek mythology. I was a big mythology nerd. I think the Odyssey itself maybe like was too long or something for my ADHD brain or something. Like it wasn't like one that like I returned to repeatedly. Outside of doing it for whatever high school class, like I think I really, and we didn't even read the whole thing. Like we read like selections from the Odyssey and various parts of it. I do like sort of, as we covered on Brother Where Art Thou, I like sort of like the adaptation. I like sort of the echoes of the Odyssey that are in things. And I like the fact that it is this Ur myth that like kind of, shows up in all these places because it is like, one of the first stories. And so all of that, I appreciate it very much.
So my first experience with the Odyssey, Sam and I were at a play date over at Bijani's house. Sam was playing with Theoden, and I was just looking at the shelves, and I saw a copy of the Odyssey. I saw a couple copies of the Odyssey on the bookshelf. And Bijani was out and then came home, and I was like, oh my God, I want to read the Odyssey. And you had said that you had taught it, and you gave me the Fitzgerald copy and said, although there were many different translations, that was the one to start with. And so I read that one and really enjoyed it, and then read the Iliad because I was like, there's so much of the stories missing. Like, what's happening? Why are they even in Troy? Yeah, I was like, let me read the prequel so I can finally find out let me hear the story of Helen and launching the ships, and then how they sacked the city and how they did the Trojan horse. None of that's in there.
None of that.
It's like one long weekend of fighting out of 9 years, but fucking awesome.
One pouty Achilles who's just stuck in his tent being pouty. Yeah.
Exactly. And I thought for sure we'd see Achilles in the movie. Of course, we don't see Achilles in there, but... So it was that was a really fascinating piece. And then I also last week, just in prep, about a week and a half ago, I went ahead and listened to the Wilson translation, which is the first translation by a woman and a more modern telling done in iambic pentameter, but with more modern language. And I thought, and some modern sensibilities, which I thought was really effective and felt like an unlock to me for Nolan and his approach for what he was doing. So can we just take a minute before we do BTS on Nolan, kind of just explain a little bit about where the Odyssey came from and kind of like our best understandings of the Homeric tradition and the oral history, and then the written. Just give us like a 60-second kind of like primer on that.
60 seconds
on the Odyssey. On the backstory of the Odyssey. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's really fascinating about the Odyssey is, no one can ever pinpoint Homer as a historical figure, right? He's sort of the pseudonym for the type of storytelling oral tradition bards that would have been at courts like, Ithaca or courts like Sparta. And so, Homer is like kind of all of us storytellers in some way, or he's like the spiritual ancestor of all storytellers. And so, and I'll be honest, like the backstory in terms of the historical, like who was the first person to find the manuscript of the Odyssey, I don't know exactly that many details, but what I do know is that the ways in which each translation kind of takes its current day contemporary values and uses like, the actual Greek, the original Greek is not that flowery. Like its prose is actually pretty straightforward. The descriptions are, and I don't read original Greek, but I've read a little bit about this, and so its descriptions are quite straightforward and basic, and some people even say brutal sometimes in the descriptions of the violence. And so what I find fascinating is not, how faithful is an adaptation or a translation to Homer's original Greek, because again, he never wrote it down. Hundreds of years after the first bard spoke this story was it then written down. But it's about how each translator can make it their own and situate it in its contemporary era. And so I think that's really fascinating. Like Fitzgerald wrote it in, I think, 1961. So he's got a very 1960s traditional, kind of elitist university level style of writing that was very much popular of academics at the time. I think Wilson does an incredible job of making our contemporary, centering the women so much more than I think the earlier male translators. And so I think the ways in which we read the Odyssey, whatever translation we use or however we know it came to us, it tells us more about who we are and less about who the translators were. So I think, yeah, that's a fascinating idea.
Super interesting. Super interesting. So for Nolan, this is his follow-up to he was already on a kind of like crazy career run, with the stuff that he had done. Tenet being his big kind of breakout hit, but also where Warner Brothers blew it with him by releasing Tenet kind of like same day on HBO Max during the pandemic. Which it was also, by the way, speaking of hubris, his whole thing of like, no, everybody come back into the theaters for my movie. Like, that's the only way we can do this. Don't worry about it. I could defy the gods is that's a thing.
Yeah.
But then he does Odyssey does Oppenheimer for Universal, huge juggernaut, $1 billion, 7 Oscars, Best Picture, Best Director. And then he turns that around. And that was only $100 million movie. He turns around to make the Odyssey, which is by far his most ambitious movie, most expensive movie, really absolutely going for it. And we'll talk about all the rest of it, but so much of this stuff done on location, things, as much as possible practical, with obviously tons of CG throughout the whole thing, but, Scotland and Iceland and Greece and just all these places where they went and built these amazing sets. But $250 million production, which, by the way, Dune 3 is $200 million, up from $165 for the original.
A lot of cash.
Yeah.
It's a lot of cash. $250. It's the most expensive rated R movie ever made. It opened with $124 million domestically, $264 million global. So Nolan's biggest opening weekend ever outside of a Batman film, his biggest launch ever. This topped Dark Knight Rises, and just unbelievable. 95%.
It's a huge hit. It's a huge hit. It's a huge hit. Yeah, and it'll be a prohibitive favorite in like 14 Oscar categories, basically. Yeah, he did it. He did it. He defied the gods.
He did the thing.
Yeah. It's great. It's kind of crazy that a movie, I mean, like it is a rated R 3-hour movie, but it is also a spectacle. And so it's like, I think it's also in many ways like one of Nolan's more straightforward movies. Like, it's not like Oppenheimer that's like, like it's got this, I don't know, like the plot of the Odyssey is not particularly hard to recount. It's like, he's trying to get home, various things stop him from getting home. I turned to Crystal at one point during the movie and was like, they're really on an Odyssey. And like, it's like they're really going places. Whereas like Oppenheimer, if you tried to recount the story of Oppenheimer, you'd probably get a little lost along the way, I think. So yeah, but it's amazing that and it's like sold out in IMAX for 4 months or something. Like, it's going to have this crazy long run. It's great. It's very exciting. It's a thrilling state of affairs.
Crazy shit. All right. Well, so Bijani, Jason, as I was sitting there watching the movie yesterday next to Bijani, she had a notebook which she had been filling. And I think she finished filling it by the time we got to the end. So Bijani, where do you want to start with the Odyssey?
That's such a great question. I mean, I think one of the things that was that I'd love to start with is Odysseus and what his hubris is. So hubris, for those who don't know, is, this sense of overconfidence, this arrogance, this pride that in Greek tragedy often is the impetus for somebody's fatal flaw or fall from grace or whatever. And so for Odysseus, his hubris in the poem is presented very differently than it is in Nolan's version. And so, like, I think that would be an awesome place to start, kind of.
That's great. That's
Matt,
great.
you've read the Fitzgerald, I know. Then, like,
Yeah.
from your recollection, what is Odysseus like? What's the poem
I love this.
Odysseus and
I
his
like
sort
I
of
like
fatal
a
flaw?
question from the teacher thrown back
Wait,
on Matt.
I'm now
This
put
is
on the
good.
spot.
Let's
Yeah,
see
I
how good
mean-
Matt can do here.
Well,
He's gonna
it's
fail.
interesting.
Already
it's
enough.
interesting it's interesting to me because, like, for me, when I think about the poem version, it's mostly about he is this big, powerful, this king who is used to doing all these amazing things, and it's about him being willing to really, because he's suffering, right? In the poem, he's suffering more to get home. One of the biggest changes is Calypso has been feeding him the lotus eater, so he doesn't even know who he is, and he's
Yeah.
rediscovering that. And I thought that was
Yes.
a really interesting technique, as opposed to for 7 years he's sitting on the beach every morning just wailing. That's not very
Weeping.
cinematic, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a tough one to pull off. But the notion of his willingness to abase himself and to be a beggar and to walk in with absolutely nothing into multiple kingdoms, and then to finally get home and to take all of this abuse because he knows he needs to do that in order to get into position. A lot of people wouldn't be willing or able to do that. And
I don't think Matt answered the question. I think Matt's dodging the question.
You definitely get some of that hubris. I think for me, the hubris in the film is like he is 100% committed to his men, and he is trying to figure out how to get his men to safety. And his willingness to say, I will defy the gods, I can beat the gods, I can beat prophecy, I can do anything as long as I try hard enough and my men
Yeah.
don't fuck up.
Yeah.
And not trusting them at times,
Yeah.
I thought it made sense, but I can understand how that would be considered a flaw for it's the Trumpian only I can fix this
Yes.
that I think is a problem.
Which definitely is an echo of the poem Odysseus. Like, poem Odysseus many times withholds information. He lies by omission. I think about the Scylla and Charybdis episode where he tells them, trust me, guys, like, we have to go through this channel. He doesn't say anything. He just talks about how horrible the whirlpool might be. He says nothing about the presence of a monster. I think just as a tangent, I think it's so fascinating that Matt Damon's Odysseus seemed to understand already the distrust that his crew had for him and uses reverse psychology. And he's like, we should go towards the whirlpool.
Yeah,
That's
go
very
towards the
different than,
whirlpool,
because he knew. He knew that they were going to, that Eurylochus was going to step up and say, you know what? You've screwed us over so many times that we've had so many comrades die under your watch. We're going through the channel. He wanted them to do that anyway. He knew that the Scylla was going to come and get them anyway. And so that was such a fascinating change of like, okay, we have a crew in the poem who still trust their leader. And actually, it's a lot of people have read that post the Scylla Charybdis episode is really when the trust begins to fracture. But in Matt Damon's version, or in Nolan's version, it's already fractured so much that he's just sitting on the next to the mast being like, all right, I know they're going to not listen to me and 6 are going to die anyway, but at least we'll make it through. And I think what's fascinating, what you said, Matt, about there's a term that appears over and over in the poem called supplication, or being a supplicant, which requires you to humble yourself towards somebody or in front of someone in a position of power over you. And there's like a very traditional way to do it in ancient Greek culture. You have to grab their knees, you hug them, you yourself are on your knees, you use a specific kind of language. And Odysseus finds himself having to do that many, many times in order to access guest law or access Xenia or whatever the Zeus's law, I think is how Nolan describes it, right?
Right.
And what is really interesting, too, is the hubris that he feels about himself being the person who knows best. Matt Damon's version, the person who knows best, that his law is going to supersede whatever the gods want them to do, or his intentions for his crew. He never, ever shows that humility, ever. And so even when he's asking for help, like, he's supposed to go to the Cyclops' cave and ask for help, they show up in armor. They steal his cheese. They do all these things that are sort of antithetical to what actual guest law is. And even Eurylochus calls him out. Hamish Patel goes, how do you know that this person knows who Zeus is? Like, why are you relying so heavily on Zeus's law? And he's like, well, if we don't rely on Zeus's law, like, we're just going to light a fire and the guy's going to show up and we'll just handle it from there. And so I think that, I agree with you that like he doesn't ever really show that level of humility in the way that the poem can and does do. And there's a great epithet that Fitzgerald uses, and I can remember Emily Wilson, whose translation I also love and have also taught. I've also taught the Robert Fagles edition. I've taught the Odyssey a lot. But Fitzgerald calls him the Raider of Cities. When he's showing up as his pirate self, and he's going to go and try to plunder and loot and do all these things, which, frankly, that's kind of his persona when he steps into the Cyclops cave. He's that, and ironically, he doesn't think that he is. He thinks he's trying to be this supplicant. And it's like, no, bro, you're definitely just here stealing a bunch of cheese from a guy you don't even know who he is or what religion he follows or anything. There's so much.
They showed that when they got to the island when they were really hungry, and then they just cut to like all of the huts are burning. The guy's on the ground with the sword at his throat.
Exactly.
Like, this is not this is not too nice. Jason, Himesh Patel from Station 11.
So stoked. And as some have pointed, I think it was Joanna Robinson pointed out that he's essentially like the co-lead of the movie. Like he's really in it a ton.
A lot.
Would have been nice if like you saw more of him in like the big
in the press.
In the marketing.
Press, in the marketing of it, because he's really great in it.
Yeah.
And like the relationship that he has with Odysseus is very interesting. It's one of the more evolving relationships in the movie. Like pretty much the rest of the characters are like they understand each other and they kind of come to new understandings, but like it goes from we're brothers who will die together to like I don't fucking trust this dude at all.
Right. Yeah.
And then he just like, and he ultimately kind of, dies on a boat. Like it doesn't work out. So I would have loved to see more of him in the press. He's really great in it. Love seeing him in the movie.
Absolutely. Yeah. I loved their relationship.
Argivon.
And when you see him hand Odysseus his helmet as he's walking through the gates of Troy, and they kind of do that, that dap or whatever it is.
Yeah,
not
totally.
really,
He's
you're just like, all right, let's
do this.
Let's go, bro.
Let's fucking get these Trojans. Let's
and
sack this shit.
To when the ship breaks and he's reaching out for Eurylochus or Odysseus reaching out for Eurylochus, and it's like, that is how far your actions have broken this relationship, this brotherly relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also tough, right? Like popping off a prayer. Eurylochus is saying, ask for forgiveness to Poseidon for having blinded Polyphemus, his son. It's like, I don't think that's really going to solve that in that moment. Like just saying like, hey dude, sorry, like they're going down. And I understand the frustration that he has there.
You got to start somewhere though. You better start, like, listen, you better start making your sorries really quick because your boat's getting fucked up.
I have thoughts. I actually, I don't, well, that's another thing I'd love to talk about is the gods,
we're going to get it.
All of that.
We're definitely going to spend time on that.
But I don't think Eurylochus is actually asking for him to pray to forgiveness to Poseidon so that the storm will stop. I think it's like, we're about to die and I need you to show me that you have learned something from the imminent deaths of your crew. And if you cannot in this moment humble yourself and do what you've told me and the rest of the crew you'll never do for us, then like you clearly
fuck you, bro.
Did not care about us. You did not care about us. And that was the really tragic moment for me is like, Eurylochus isn't saying pray for forgiveness. He's like, say sorry to me. Say sorry to me for how you got us to this moment. Like show me that you can, that you, he's, I think Odysseus is always saying like, your gods. It's your gods, Eurylochus, not my gods. And it's like, okay, if that's true, then show me you care about me by praying to my gods for me on my behalf.
But that's not quite fair though. Because like to me, the moment when the Cyclops is tipping the boulder out and Odysseus has gotten out, but his men, some of his men are still in there, he jumps right back in there because he is committed to his men. So like he has proven again and again, he is doing everything he can. He does have a faith in himself that he is going to lead them. And, he doesn't follow Agamemnon. He thinks he has a better way to get home. So maybe that's like the first breaking point.
Yeah.
But I think he does clearly establish that he cares and that he is a good leader in that way.
Dude, Agamemnon is awesome in this movie. I love the Agamemnon aura is undefeated. Like he like shows up, he like Odysseus is like, oh, fuck, the big bro is here. I got to do whatever he says. And then it's just like, he shows up when he opens the gates of Troy and Agamemnon's on the other side. It's just like,
that was a great shot.
It's real Darth Vader vibes. Like
For
real,
sure.
like I am
The
here
original.
to wreck.
The original Darth Vader, yes.
Really interesting choices. And he's got like skull stuff like down the back of
Oh,
his,
yeah.
his neck, and like
skeleton. Yeah.
it's given real like are we the baddies energy.
Somebody called out though that
Agamemnon.
when Ben Safdie talked, it was kind of lame. Like he
The
sounded,
voice didn't sound quite. Yeah, he needed it was sort of like the
Sabine voice.
David Prowse
Yeah.
original Darth Vader.
Yeah,
voice.
original David Prowse voice versus James
Yeah.
Earl Jones, which is always
Yeah.
a shock. Every time I come across that clip, I'm like, oh my God.
Tear the ship apart.
Yeah.
Find the
exactly.
plans.
It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Dude. So I want to talk about we talked about the humility and the hubris, and that being kind of like the fundamental challenge in the poem version. To me, the part that was so amazing that Nolan did was the revelation of the real suffering that he is going through in this version, which is reckoning with his actions.
Yeah.
And this reveal, we see this shot multiple times from the very beginning of him on the steps looking up kind of in horror, and we don't know exactly what's going on. At one point they cut to it and they show the statue of Athena's head cut off landing on the ground, and you're like, okay, that doesn't seem good.
That seems bad.
But ultimately, the reveal at the end, in my favorite scene of the entire movie, which is him sitting on the steps talking to Penelope, and him having realized that he didn't want to go home. There was a part of him that felt too guilty.
Yeah.
And when we finally get the sacking of Troy, which Menelaus's version is like, oh my God, the horse was awesome. And then we got inside. Yeah, you know what happens. Yeah, we don't have to talk about what happens after that. Just sort of kind of move off, look at my fire dancer and, my party going on in my hall here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Odysseus reckoning with the absolute butchery and horror and the reveal ultimately of Athena, quote unquote, Athena as this young girl who is slaughtered. That was the triumph of the film in that moment. That was where it just achieved, instant classic status for me.
Do you think the decapitation of the Athena statue was an overt reference to Clash of the Titans? Because like the exact same thing happens in Clash of the Titans when like the Athena, and it's what's her face? It's Dame Maggie Smith who plays Athena in that version, and like the head comes to life.
Not
the
as
decapitated
hot.
head.
Not as hot.
The decapitated head comes to life and like curses the people of Joppa. That whole bit. Do you think it was Christopher Nolan being like, I see you, Harryhausen fans. I got you. I hold you with me.
That's a great question. I mean, what's the name of the bird? Is it Cheop or whatever? What's the name of the mechanical owl? I love that guy.
Oh,
Bobo.
Yeah.
Bobo. So first of all, we're going to do that. John Walsh, who came on the podcast because he wrote the book on the making of Flash Gordon, did a making of Clash of the Titans. So we will be having him come on. So I'll give him a call. Maybe we'll do that this fall.
Okay.
That would be good.
All right.
That would be good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I really love that. So then let's talk about that. When we have the revelation ultimately that Zendaya is playing a girl that has been haunting his dreams. So are there gods or not? In an age of apparent magic or whatever that line was at the beginning of the movie, in Nolan's version, are there gods actually taking actions here, or is it just us?
I'm going to jump in. I think in Nolan's version, there are no gods, but there is magic. And I know that's kind of like, how do you thread that needle? I don't quite subscribe to what I'm seeing online as like the life of Pi theory, where everything that happens to Odysseus on the journey is actually just a metaphor for, there is no Cyclops. It's just a shepherd that he happened to like blind, like a foreign shepherd who's not Greek, or like, Charybdis is a whirlpool, but Scylla doesn't exist. It's just like, maybe an octopus that like pulled his people off the shore or whatever. I don't subscribe to that. What I do think, though, is that I think Nolan does a really fascinating modern interpretation. We're trying to find meaning in our lives. And for many people, both in ancient Greece and I think today, like religion is the way that we make sense of a world that doesn't really have answers for us. And so, for Odysseus, for Eurylochus, for everyone, and Telemachus, right? They're all seeking something externally when they can't answer those questions within themselves. And so Athena, for me, and in Odysseus's mind, he has to externalize his trauma, that it's got to be she is a representation of the worst thing he's ever done in his life, of his guilt, of, breaking the bonds of companionship and of humanity. he brought in like this weapon of mass destruction. I saw something online about how, the Trojan horse is basically
the
Oppenheimer's
first
atom
WMD.
bomb or
Yeah.
whatever, right? It's like,
That's
I've
good.
opened the door. I am become death, destroyer of worlds. Like, that's kind of what Odysseus says in his speech to Penelope. And I think that, if Athena is real and she's taking the form of this priestess who was murdered, it lessens Odysseus's transformation into a person who can accept the darker sides of himself. And this is kind of going back to this idea for me about hubris, which I think Damon's version of Odysseus, his hubris is really sticking to this narrative he has about himself as a really good guy, as a great leader, as a father for his crew, and the best of the Achaeans, which is, a title that everybody vied for, that Achilles wanted, but I think Odysseus wanted at one point in the Iliad. He wants to be the best of the Achaeans. He wants to be not Agamemnon, not Menelaus. I'm a good person. His desire to stick to that narrative about himself is what drives him to defy the gods in his mind. And I think it's only when he realizes on those steps, like, I have to accept that I did something so horrific, so much worse probably than the people who I have placed as morally beneath myself. Only then does she disappear, right? Because I think she's just a manifestation of his PTSD, his trauma, his guilt. And when he accepts that, he can sort of then realize, okay, now what do I do? How do I use my skills? How can I then help my son ascend the throne as the just moral ruler I thought I was, or that I really wished I could be? So yeah, I don't think that works if Athena's real.
That's great. What a great analysis. This is what you get when we get experts on this podcast. It's not just a bunch of
I like
talking
the poem.
shit.
I'm gonna say I like the poem.
This is good. This is great.
Jason, how about Zendaya? What did you think of her performance here?
I love Zendaya, man. I'm so excited. The year of Zendaya is amazing. I wasn't a big fan. I wasn't a big fan of the last season of whatever we call it.
Euphoria is awful.
Euphoria,
sorry,
but we're beyond that. We've gotten beyond that, and now we've got this. We got Spider-Man, and we've got Dune, and it's just great. I will say the family is doing our summer rewatch of Dune's Part 1 and 2, and we just finished Dune 1 last night. And yeah, she's just so great in it. Like, she's just so, like, when she's barely in it, but when she shows up and she's doing the whole thing with Paul about, like, you're going to have an honorable death. Like, I'm going to give you this, like, Jameis is going to fuck you up, but at least you'll be holding this knife and that'll be chill for you. My kids were like so into that. They're like, wow, she thinks he's going to just get got here. Like, she she really is just doesn't care at all. Like, she's not in love with him at all. He loves her. It's like they immediately got like sort of the relationship there. And I just love that. So yeah, I don't know. It was great. She's great in this. Always wish there were more, but sometimes a little sprinkling of Zendaya is good.
Yeah.
She's great. Love her.
Really good. And I like, just like the dialogue too is really great, where he's like, why can't the gods speak plainly, so that they can be understood? And she's like, you can't understand the thunder. You can't understand a child's smile or whatever. It's oh my God. That was some real lyrical, stuff that made it through. I really loved that.
Yeah.
But just also just really fantastic, like, men hear thunder, they're like, oh, that was bad or good, depending on where you're standing, or like the revelation, there were dolphins off to the left side as they were sailing, so that's like Poseidon is giving it a bad omen, as opposed to if they'd been on the right side of the boat, it would have been good news. So like, you can tell yourself whatever when you're looking for justification, and it's easy to point outside of that. Jason, what's your next point?
I guess, like, I would start with, maybe we could talk about the filmmaking a little bit, which I thought was very interesting.
Let's do it.
I mean, famously shot on IMAX, 70 millimeter, had these giant ass cameras, had to, like, can only shoot for 3 minutes at a time, had to build these like special mufflers so that because they're super loud. Like, just technically, it's a marvel. I think, like,
they had to edit it on film. Like, can you imagine? Like, guys, all these editors for years have been doing everything.
Have been using digital transfer. Yeah. All that's really interesting. I think, like, there's been a lot written also about, like, kind of the, just like the spectacle of it and how hard it was for the movie to make. And like, I think a lot of people have made, like, sort of analogies, like David Lean. We talk about a fair amount, whether, in particular in the context of Lawrence of Arabia.
Bridge of the Requai.
Yeah. But, like, the idea that, but the interesting thing about this is that it's not lean. And also another thing people have talked about is Nolan is like the heir of Kubrick style grand scale, sort of epic. But it's interesting because like these movies are not very, this movie is not very Kubrickian or very lenient. It is a grand, epic adventure. But the way in which it's shot is very like up close and personal. Like it is like a lot of it is it is dominantly POV of Odysseus or like whoever or Telemachus. Like, the movie is really concerned with the point of view of the character that's on screen, and that's like echoed in the language of the movie where characters speak in very simple declarative sentences, and it's very direct. Like the movie is meant to be very direct. And so even during stuff like the Sacking of Troy, which is a bravura piece of filmmaking on scale with like the seizing of the town in Lawrence of Arabia, the point of view
insane.
It's insane. But like, let me just finish this point. Like the point of view in Lawrence of Arabia is from very, very far away, so that you see like sort of all the horses run into the town and take over. The point of view from is Odysseus in this movie. Like it is him seeing like the towers fall and seeing like all of the violence happen, and like it very rarely pulls back. And so it has this like very direct point of view, even compared to something like the Dark Knight Rises or Inception or Tenet. Like it feels like so much more through the eyes of the character. I found that very interesting that they would do this like big 70 millimeter IMAX stuff, but then it's like from essentially like a lot of it is filmed in very close up on Odysseus or Calypso or Penelope or Telemachus. Very, very interesting choice to make a movie this grand of scale but this intimate.
Yeah.
It's such a wild thing, this idea of, so everybody's been freaking about the 70 millimeter IMAX, which obviously I was insistent on going to, and spent 2.5 hours when the tickets went on sale, and finally was able to get tickets for Monday at 10 a.m. That was the only thing that I could get. Tickets are sold out for 6 a.m. showings. Apparently, they're doing 2 a.m. showings. They're doing 7. Yeah. It's 3 weeks. They basically have 3 weeks of 100% exclusive IMAX access. It's the same as Dune 3. Before Spider-Man comes in and will take over. But this is an interesting thing where it's so hard and so frustrating just to even be able to go see the movie in the way it is, quote unquote, intended by the creator. But like when I'm sitting there watching it in the Metreon, which has a 96-foot tall screen, and you have the shot of him on Calypso's island, and you always get in widescreen this amazing sense of this character in the middle of this giant wide vista, but to also have a 100-foot high screen so that literally he was tiny right in the middle of that island shot, and the whole thing just makes him look so small. And there were a couple of shots that were like that. I agree with you. Most of it was much closer up and more personal. But some of the outdoor ones are them walking up the path to Cersei's hut or whatever. It's just absolutely stunning. And I'm sure it still looks great for Todd Vaziri posted. It looked great on a regular screen, non IMAX, not anything. I have no doubt about that. But it's just a wild thing.
I mean, there's an element of this too, which you go ahead. Right. There's something interesting about like one other thing about the way that, and I saw it on fake IMAX here in Oregon. So I haven't seen it in 70 millimeter IMAX. Yeah. But I do think it's interesting as well that there's almost sort of a meta critique in the way that the movie's shot of some of the volume based filmmaking that we've had in the last few years. Like, so there's, because of the way the movie business works right now, they're very incented. It is true that like you're meant to see it in the way it was, on 70 millimeter IMAX, but it's also true that the business only works if people are buying like the $25 IMAX tickets. Because like, like that's where all the premium formats is where they make the money. And so there's a big incentive around the marketing to be like, look, like you have to be willing to shell out for this. And that's been true for, like sort of the Marvel Star Wars movies as well. It's like, and that's what people expect from movies now, is that they're going to be these events that you can go to. I feel like there's a meta commentary that Nolan is doing, because in a lot of the Odyssey, you have these ultra close-ups of Calypso or Matt Damon or Telemachus, and the background is not a dramatic, like,
Right.
depth of field, like sort of, oh, you can see to the horizon background. It is this very kind of blown out, very bright, Mediterranean sun, but also like diffuse, low contrast thing, which is what you get from volume filmmaking. Like that is what you get. That is what volume filmmaking gets you, is like this, this kind of, like diffuse emptiness in the background that's very bright. But like when you look at the image, even in sort of fake IMAX, you can see that there's so much more detail. There's so much more interesting depth in the light in that diffuse background in the Odyssey than there is in the volume. It doesn't look fake. It looks real. Somehow, like, no, this wasn't in the volume. Like he was on this island. Like they did shoot this in a cave. Like this, all the candles. Yeah, all the candles are practical. Like the braziers are popping off flames. Like, all of this stuff. Like, there is some meta commentary there about like, this is what it looks like when it's real. You can have this diffuse, bright background look, but you'll know when it's real. I don't know how intentional that sort of, narrative was for Nolan, if he was just doing what he wanted, but it was something that I thought about when I was watching it.
So striking. And this is our god, Hoyte van Hoytema, who we've done so many of his movies. Her, Interstellar, we even did Spectre. I can't believe it. I completely forgot that we covered Spectre, but we did. With Chris Lord from X-Ray Vision. We haven't done Dunkirk, but we did do Tenet. He also did Nope, Oppenheimer, and now the Odyssey. So just an absolutely phenomenal DP. And I will say the other thing that's really funny. So IMAX is like desperately trying to figure out how to get more 70 millimeter IMAX projectors, and there aren't any more.
There aren't any. Yeah.
They got from 30 to 41 globally. 25 are in the United States. But the problem is they don't have the full original specifications, and people have died or retired.
Yeah.
And like, to me, I don't buy this, Jason. Like, somebody's like, fucking figure it out.
I don't buy
like,
I don't buy this either. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, Claude's out here figuring out the Jacobian conjecture. Like, we can figure out how to build a fucking projector. Like, I don't feel this is unattainable.
Yeah. Let's figure out how to do it.
I heard that whole thing too about how people have died and no one has the plans. I was like, it's a projector. Like, like it's passing celluloid in front of a fucking light. Like, someone's going to figure it out. Like, it's
although you do see those, like those videos where they show like the plate is like this big and the things like going all over the room around all these different things. It's like crazy.
Rockets land by themselves now. Like, I don't know. Like, we're gonna, like, someone's gonna figure this. Someone can figure that one out. Like, it's. I think the issue is like they're probably. I mean, the reason why, like, it's more this interesting state of the business, which is like the reason why the guys are dead and no one has the plans is because IMAX was a dying technology, or one that wasn't. Now it's the
hotness.
So it's the load-bearing pillar of the American movie business. Like it is required to, sort of make the whole thing work. People have to be going seeing movies in premium format. So like that is like, to kind of go back to when we were talking about Doomsday, we're making this bet on what movies are meant to be to people right now, which is that they are meant to be like these like sort of shared events that like matter to people and that like get you out of your house to like go sit in a room with strangers, which is an increasingly weird thing to do. And the payoff is like, you're going to see some shit that you've never seen before. And with the Odyssey, they deliver on that because of the large format IMAX on location, spectacular nature of the movie and how it's shot. I feel Doomsday is like sort of is trying to say like, we're going to show all these character mashups that that you never saw before. And I don't think there's a big enough audience, and it's going to look like shit. It's going to look like it was filmed, because it was filmed in Atlanta or whatever with like, a flashlight and like some dudes wandering around in costume, wandering around with dots on them. So I feel like there's the audiences are going to have a particular expectation of what they're going to get from spending this much money to go to these movies. And the biggest effect of the Odyssey is it's like upping the stakes for what people are going to expect from that.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to top.
It'll be hard. I mean, the good news is, I mean, Denis is like, hold my beer.
I had said on Discord, and I had said, and this is maybe my second point, I don't know, like, I had said on Discord and elsewhere, like, I was like, I think this, just based on what people are saying about this movie, before I'd seen it, I was like, I think it's going to be hard for Denny to compete with Dune 3 against this, because it's just so grand and it's such like the kind of movie that Hollywood likes to reward. And that might, I think it would be very hard for Denny to like sort of get ahead of Nolan in an Oscars context. But for a me personally context, I think Denny's gonna do it for me. I based on like the things I've seen, and rewatching Dune 1 and 2, the bad footage I've seen from the 4-minute trailer for Dune 3, Denny is actually more the heir to the Kubrickian filmmaking style, where he is like Nolan is just not, and there's a lot written about this. Nolan is not really concerned about camera movement in the way that like a Spielberg is or a Kubrick is, like
especially not in combat. Like the fight scenes inside there is like very tough.
Whereas Denny, very clearly that is like what excites him about filmmaking, and like, you know, and that is what excites me about filmmaking. And so I actually feel, having seen the movie, which I love, the Odyssey, I actually feel Dune 3 is still going to be still in content. Surprisingly, the movie that we've dedicated 6 years of our lives, I still feel optimistic about.
God, I love it. I love it. That was good point on that. Bijani and I were able to see the first 4 minutes or something like the first 4 minutes of Dune 3, which is this crazy assault a la Saving Private Ryan. And I was like, I thought it was like 2 minutes. It was so fast, and it was, but it looked so fucking good. I definitely am.
I think it's going to go hard. I think it's going to go pretty fucking hard. Yes. I'm pretty, and it's going to be weird. It's got our Pats again. I mean, Robert Pattinson, maybe just like a great element to add to any movie, it turns out. Like, really amazing in the Odyssey. I absolutely loved his performance. What did you guys think about him in this movie?
I loved him. He really nailed the sniveling, weaselly, you know, manipulative, like verbally manipulative aspect of Antinous so well. And just, you know, like Antinous is often framed in the poem as kind of Telemachus's older brother, or who he should have been his older brother, because they're, I think, about 5 or 6 years apart. So he's not that much older. I think Nolan kind of got that idea of, you know, you were supposed to be one of the leaders of the island in my absence, you know, as one of the people who didn't go to Troy. And you really bungled it, because you're just, you suck. You really suck.
You know, I volunteered, but he told me I couldn't go.
Oh,
like,
my God.
I loved how he had that carefully rehearsed. Dropping that.
Repeating that lie over and over again. Yep.
Absolutely.
The stories we tell about ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, but the scene, the implied menace that he suppresses when he's talking to Penelope.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's kind of like right there sitting next to her. And then when his face starts twitching, when she's standing up to him, I thought was so powerful. And then, just the shit. Get the shield! Get the swords! You're
Okay, can we talk about the end of the movie?
Yeah.
A little bit, the whole fight?
Sure.
I'm down.
Amazing. I was really surprised that a Jason Bourne movie broke out in the last reel of the movie.
Twice.
I was like, oh, it's just going to be Matt Damon, like, fucking rough ass. First, I mean, a lot has been said about this, but like Matt Damon, phenomenal shape. Like his whole, like he, I mean, just like really, really tough hit for all the middle-aged dads out there. That Matt Damon's out there in that kind of shape
with those deltoids. Yeah, come on.
It's rough. It's tough for all of us. But he's fighting this whole thing. I will say there's 2 things about the fight at the end. One, I thought it was a little weird that, like, you know, at one point he's like fending off the other guys with like an arrow. Like he's just like kind of like, you know, yeah. I was like,
that's
all right,
like the equivalent of a pen, though, right? It's like
I think they might be able to get these guys. Like I think they might be able to gang up and get this guy. That was one thing. The other thing was like the whole point, like, of the scene that you love, the scene with Penelope at the screen. He's talking about how he couldn't go back because of, like, you know, the trauma and, like, you know, everything they saw, and like the girl that was killed and the sacking of Troy being so horrible, and like then not being able to protect his men and all that stuff. And then it's just like, but you know what might solve this? A bunch of violence. Like, like, you know what might be a path out of this for me is just a shit ton of violence.
Yep.
So I didn't know thematically if that made as much sense to me, but I don't know. Did you guys bump on that at all, or is it just my own? I have
so many thoughts. Let me cook.
Oh, great. Okay,
All right.
good.
So I think so in terms of like how the poem ends the fight scene, Matt Damon's version is actually way less violent than the poem. The poem is
Oh, okay,
crazy.
great.
It is like a bloodbath. There's a lot of references of him
Interesting.
standing ankle deep in blood. Telemachus is actually a huge part of that fight scene in the poem for a lot of reasons. It's sort of like a father-son. They've decided to have this plan to get the suitors, and this is the way that Telemachus starts to mold himself into his father's image. You know, they're like
And
two.
Leguizamo too.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah, Eumaeus,
Yeah.
Leguizamo's character, is also in there, like, you know, slashing suitors left and right? And this is one of my favorite lines. I just got to read it. So this is Fitzgerald. Odysseus, after he's like shot the bow, threw the axes and all that stuff, and he stands up, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, this beggar! What is he doing? Like, how dare you?" He like rips off his cloak and he goes, "You yellow dogs! You thought I'd never make it home from the land of Troy. You took my house to plunder, twisted my maids to serve your beds. You dared bid for my wife while I was still alive. Contempt was all you had for the gods who ruled wide heaven. Contempt for what men say of you hereafter. Your last hour has come. You die in blood." I'm just like,
Wow.
what? It's amazing. It's amazing.
Fuck you guys.
Seriously,
Yeah.
Homer, like, right?
Yeah.
So I think what was really cool about the fight scene, the changes I think Nolan makes is not only does he honestly like actually lessen the violence so that it's more of like a, you know, one man defending himself as opposed to this offensive, like I'm going to go completely like serial killer on 118 suitors who have been eating up my house and home. Is you sympathize a lot more with Odysseus in that moment. Like, yes, he is like this traumatized veteran, and yes, he is this person who has is learning how to come back to the version of himself that he wants to be. But you want him to succeed against the suitors. There's definitely a moment in the last in this chapter in the poem where he veers from the guy you're rooting for to, oh my God, he's really gone a little bit too far. Even Homer calls him like a mountain lion with his maw smeared in blood, like at a certain moment.
Like these guys, you saw the guys like kneeling down in the movie here, right? In the book, they're like, dude, so sorry. It was a tenuous, really, really sorry. And he's like, hey, guess what? Fuck off. Dead.
Slashes.
Dead.
Yes, kills everybody.
He killed the slave girl. His slaves, his 12 slaves who had slept with the suitors, like those all get hung.
Yeah.
Right. It is an absolute bloodbath in there.
Yeah.
So
and Emily Wilson does. Yeah, Emily Wilson does a great job of making sure that we remember that as slaves they can't consent, and so they were raped by these suitors. And there's a lot of discourse about that out there. I appreciate that Nolan didn't include that scene, but, you know, poem Telemachus actually is the one who kills them in this really horrific way. He hangs them. And so that their deaths are an agonizing death as opposed to a quick death with, you know, a sword or whatever. And so so I think what was really fascinating about the change from these two hyper violent, you know, like let's assert our masculinity in this really intense, violent way that the poem shows is that Odysseus does his best to protect Telemachus from getting infected by that bloodlust that really made him become the person to create this Trojan horse, right? He's like, I want to keep my son's hands clean. And, you know, at first you're kind of like, well, that's weak Telemachus or whatever. And then he ends up going up to the storeroom and showing off his prowess with Melanthius, the disloyal servant. But the more I thought about it, the more I really appreciate it. Not only is it like Matt Damon getting to show off his amazing abs and like his incredible fight skills and whatnot, but it does, to me, it thematically and narratively made sense. Like, I am tainted, I am broken, I am morally compromised. And so I'm going to use that like level of violence to great effect to protect my kingdom and also to keep my son from falling into the same trap that I fell into.
That's great.
Think he was going to die, Jason? I did. I did think he was.
Yeah, I thought he was. I 100% thought I was like, oh, this is a wrap. This guy's not making it out of this. This is a last stand situation for sure. Yeah, I thought he was going to die. I do think this is where like sort of the book, or not the book, but like the poem and the movie are a bit in tension thematically, and where some like Chud commentators, like I don't want to like get too much into the Chud commentary about the movie because it's not really worth engaging with, but I do think like there is some active tension between like sort of, if you want this to be about like Odysseus's trauma and his PTSD of being in this war, like that is at odds with like sort of both like how I think like ancient people would have understood like the nature of war as well as
Yeah.
what Homer's understanding of the nature of war would have been. Like
Agreed.
it just like that wasn't an idea yet.
Yeah.
As well as the fact that like it had not yet narratively been in like beyond like even like the trauma theme not being invented, like the whole idea of a narrative hero or like a narrative protagonist in the context of a like how we understand a narrative hero in the context of a novel, like that just didn't exist. Like that didn't
Right.
exist yet.
Right,
Like
right,
that
right.
was like that was like several centuries later. Like and in terms of in terms of in terms of the history of the work. So like but I did really like for me I saw it coming, but I really did like the "We Are the Sea People" payoff of the story because I liked the idea that that they were that he had struggled so much with this loss of civilization and this loss of norms and this loss of kind of what it meant to be human, that we were now adrift in a lawless world in which it was only a matter of might and what you could impose upon other people. I thought that was, and that was like something that civilization was going to have to struggle with again and again. I thought that was really good.
We are the
There's a little bit
monsters
of
we thought we were fighting, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the monsters,
Yeah.
we are the monsters.
Yeah.
I think this is an example of the hubris, though, right? Like this shit was it was not good out there. It was not
No.
good before this. It was not good after this. So I don't think like this is not it's not actually an Oppenheimer situation. He hasn't it's not like there's going to be a bunch of Trojan horses all over the place that's gonna change war, or that suddenly people are like, oh, cool, now we got a green light, we can rape and pillage the way that we wanted to. Like that was already happening.
Yeah.
But to your point earlier, that the translation in our modern setting, this is a great way to be able to do it. And it definitely resonates for us to try and think about like, what are we willing to do, in order to maintain the things that we want.
And there's a section of, just really quickly, there's a section of the translator's note in Emily Wilson's text, and I just think it captures what I think Nolan was trying to do as well. She says, all modern translations of ancient texts exist in a time, a place, and a language that are entirely alien from those of the original. All modern translations are equally modern. The question facing translators and their readers is whether to try to disguise this fact through stylistic tricks such as archaism and an elevated artificially literary register, or to underline the difference and thereby encourage readers to be aware that the text exists in two different temporal and spatial moments at once. And I'm like, that's exactly what Nolan did, right?
Completely.
He's doing a film for 2026 with a very modern hero, even though the setting is so fantastical and the beats of the story and the plot structure is so echoes the poem. But his Odysseus and Homer's Odysseus are not the same person. They're not the same character, but it resonates more with with us now, right? Like we get it,
I love that. I think that's really helpful. And I think sort of puts a point to one of the questions that I had as well, which was the language in the movie as being both the choice, everyone to have American accents and my dad stuff. And but also just it's all so direct, the way in which they talk. This is one of the things that I said this when we talked about Oppenheimer, but it's I'm going to have to see the movie again because I think there's more going on than I could possibly absorb in one viewing.
Yeah.
There's something going on with the language and the intentionality of how he uses the language. And I think it is playing with that idea that you just talked about from the Watson, which is the Wilson, which is I'm trying to draw attention to the fact that this is adaptation, this is that this is not meant to be period accurate.
Yeah.
I really like that. I really like that notion.
Well, I think I know there was a lot of internet discourse around Telemachus using dad. And I think, it does sound really weird to our ears because we're expecting, received pronunciation or whatever it's called, that British accent and whatnot and fancy language and all that stuff. But it actually does echo Telemachus being in the poem, a very whiny little brat. That's kind of what I say to my students sometimes. I'm like, he's a whiner. He whines all the time. And he is 19, almost 20 when the poem begins. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm wrong. He's 21 because he was a year old before his dad left for Troy. So he's 21 years old. He shouldn't be acting like a 13, 14-year-old boy, but he does because there's arrested development, right? And what I noticed that Tom Holland did, which was really cool, or Nolan in the script did, is, he says, Dad, my dad's coming home. I got to find my dad. Then when he actually becomes this man and is after the Temple of Pylos and they have that fight and he realizes comes back as a prince with all the accoutrements that Menelaus gave him. And then he sees Odysseus say goodbye to Argos. And then he says, "You're Odysseus, you're my father." And
Yeah.
it's like, that's why you're using father now. You're using father because it's like, I can relate to you on a more adult level as opposed to, where's my dad? So I hated it in the trailer, but like narratively now that makes sense to the way that Tom Holland is playing it.
Dude, the Argos scene. Did I talk about that enough? The dog.
Yeah, let's talk about the dog.
Like that was amazing when you just hold on Telemachus's face as he realizes that that's his father. Holy shit. That worked.
I love that. I love that both Tom Holland and Matt Damon have talked about how they got outacted by the dog in the movie. That this is like, they're like, what the fuck? Who is this dog and how is he so good? But like seriously, like Tom Holland was a real gift during the press tour of this movie. Really, like I think did a lot of good. Really helped sell the movie. And I also think like was excellent in the movie. And as we talked about, like we were excited to see Tom Holland like sort of in something that wasn't Spider-Man, and I think he crushed it here. I thought he was a great Telemachus. Yeah,
he was a great Telemachus.
Let's do some more rounding on the cast while we're here. So Samantha Morton, you leaned over as soon as they started going up to Cersei's hut. You're like, this is my favorite part of the movie. Like the body horror as she starts pulling their faces.
Yeah. Amazing.
This is what Crystal is like. We made the right decision not to bring the kids. When they started doing.
Yeah.
They started because it was all so, and all of that was like done with puppets and shit. Like there was no CGI,
no CG.
Which is crazy.
That's
I'm sure Todd Vaziri is mad because like I'm sure there was some digital compositing or whatever, but like there wasn't. But like like they used a bunch of like it was so interesting. Like the way in which they did it reminded me of some of like Jim Henson's like darker shit.
Totally.
Of when like it's just like, oh yeah, like someone transforming into a hedgehog or whatever. And
it
will haunt you for the rest of your fucking life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that was really good. Yeah,
I loved her so much. I mean, I think I hope that she gets an Oscar nom, even though it was a short
She's
scene.
Really good.
She just captures that female rage so well, where you're just like, I am fed up with being alone and vulnerable in a patriarchy with these men who are coming after me. I don't know if you guys have read or heard of Madeline Miller's Circe, which is a retelling of a lot of the Circe myths.
Right.
And I feel like, that definitely must have informed Samantha Morton's performance, because there is a scene in there where she is this amazing witch who's like divine. She's like the daughter of Helios, the sun god, does all this awesome stuff, but she's in exile for a bunch of reasons. And then she's shipload of Greek soldiers, not Odysseus's men, a totally different crew, come, and there's like some sexual violence that happens. And she feels really vulnerable for the first time. And she's like, how could I be this incredible witch and yet still be at the mercy of some random pirate who happens to be on my ship? And so I think it was like her speech to Odysseus when she's like, you sent these men after me alone. You sent them. How did you know they weren't going to hurt me? You didn't care. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Like, this is kind of what it's like sometimes to be a woman in this world, where you're just like, you have to watch your back a lot of the time. And I also felt really fascinating. I have this like theory going on in my head about this narrative she's telling herself. Like, this is how I reclaim my agency. I'm going to preemptively, aggressively, and offensively, turn them into pigs, whether they show me behavior that deserves pig transformation or not. It's like, I don't care. I'm not going to give you the chance to show me what kind of a monster you are. I assume you're pigs already. And she's not wrong. I mean, a lot of the time they do act very pig-like.
They're going to be pigs. They're going to be pigs.
Totally. But I think Odysseus helps her reframe that version of herself, where it's like, yes, you can be on your guard. Yes, you can be this person who, isn't a victim and who can actually protect herself, but also like give people a chance to prove you wrong. Give people a chance to actually like show you who they really are underneath, instead of assuming everybody is a monster, right? And so I loved that. I thought that was really fascinating. When you see her kind of have that moment of like, you're right. Like, they didn't actually do. This crew didn't actually do anything.
Not very good table manners, I would say.
Although I'm assuming that was her potion in the soup, making them gross.
I don't know. I've seen people eat before, but
I saw an excerpt posted today from the poem that Odysseus agrees to sleep with Circe even after the men are turned into pigs.
Oh, it's He stays there for a year in the poem, and they are
pretty
having a
crazy.
grand old time. It's like idyllic, like romps in the grass. They're like out
He
banging
loves
each
it
other
out
all over
there.
the island.
He
Like
loves
it's
it.
yeah. And he really is tempted not to go home. It's actually his crew who tells him, "Bro, we've been here
We gotta go."
forever. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting
Right.
tired, and I know you're having a great time with your girlfriend, but like we gotta go. We've been here for a year. We need to go home." So yeah.
Right.
I did think it was funny how like somebody posted this in the Discord, like every scene is like they show up, they go on, and then 4 minutes later they're just
They're
running
running for the boat. Get the fuck out of here!
We gotta go.
That's right.
So
yeah.
so funny.
This is turned to shit.
No.
It's like, I said to Crystal at some point, it's like they do a lot of running from the shore in this movie.
Yeah.
Get out.
Continuing through, what about Charlize? My God, she looked
She looked great.
total smoke show, gotta say.
Yeah.
But an interesting reframing of her as well. From in the poem, she is the one she wants him, and she's going to keep him, and it's only with the intervention of the gods to say like, hey, you got to let him go now. She's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting, this idea of her kind of caretaking him. And until he's quote unquote strong enough to be able to deal with the memories of what's happened. I thought she had she was
I
awesome
loved all the stuff on the beach. It really reminded me of the stuff from the whatever it is, the underworld in Inception, where it's like, where he like ends up sort of like lost in time and like, like doesn't want to remember. It's very similar, but no wives were killed this time. So
no
big
wives were
growth,
killed.
big growth for Nolan in
That's
this
right.
one.
No fridging. That's great.
Although Helen got cut up, that was not great.
Well, that's like that wasn't a choice. The cutting up did that happen? Does Helen get sliced up?
No, she doesn't. She's so different in the poem. And we don't have to go into that quite yet or today or whatever. But it was a very different interpretation of Helen. But I think it was interesting. Like I don't know how you guys read this. I read that as a domestic violence situation. That was Menelaus,
definitely 100%.
right?
Yeah.
Doing that to her face as a
No, 100%.
Punishment.
Yeah. And she's clearly like living and having a tough
in
time.
hell.
Although, I guess not as tough as Clytemnestra.
True.
He did not come through Bernthal as Menelaus. Like he was definitely like scary and angry and just dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Bad. Jason, what'd you think about Leguizamo as you?
I thought he was great. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen Leguizamo in something. I thought he was really fun though, right? I thought he was really fun.
Yeah, he was great. He does a great job. He does a great job as the father figure to Telemachus, and the wise servant that gets underestimated a lot of the time. Like he really sold that very well. Yeah.
That's that competence porn that we like so much, like the Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, he was great.
Style. It's funny. I remember I texted Bijani when I was reading Fitzgerald because when he describes the portions of Eumaeus in the poem, the singer actually addresses Eumaeus and says, "Oh, and then you did this, and then you did that," in a way that he doesn't do it with anybody else. So Eumaeus clearly a very, very favored character in the movie.
Totally.
Guys, anything we missed? Bijani, I know you got a lot of stuff. Anything you
don't
want
let
to
me
make
cook
sure?
anymore, Matt.
You cooked well. You was some master chefing.
Anything you want to make sure that we cover?
I think some of the changes, for those who don't know the poem or haven't, aren't as immersed in the poem like this, these might not have been obvious changes, but I think two changes made the film work really well for me. And I'll be honest, the first time I saw it, I was very much like, this isn't a one-to-one, direct translation. And then I sort of was like, oh no, I understand what Nolan is trying to do. So for me, it's definitely making Calypso be both the architect of his awakening and also his enabler, captor person, because she's keeping him hostage. The lotus flowers are not in the poem at Calypso's Island. It's actually a totally different episode.
Totally different part. Yeah.
I loved that though. I think that was really a great analogy to. I was talking to a friend of mine, Phil Cutier, shout out, who was also my English teacher, who didn't teach me the Odyssey, but we've talked about this many times. But yeah, we were talking about how it's such a great analogy to war veterans today. Have a lot of veterans who are self-medicating for a lot of reasons and don't want to remember or can't remember or don't have access to services, and I just felt like, this is sort of the way that you might have done it back in ancient Greece if the lotus flowers existed. You would want to eat that and forget and not want to remember.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really cool. And then I think the other thing was the addition of Sinon, who is not a character in the poem. I think that
Right.
character shows up in other
Aeneid?
Greek myths, possibly the
Yeah.
Iliad, I'm not sure. But not a character in the poem. Like, Elliot Page's character was incredible. I thought he did an amazing job as Sinon, as like the conscience that Odysseus, he wants this man to look up to him. He wants to take care of him. This is sort of the son that, didn't leave behind, that he took with him to war. And like, what a tragedy, your decisions, Odysseus, that you made of lying to him. You're like, oh, well, if you get tortured, you're going to reveal the secret. But what was more important? Was it to continue to build that trust with this man who would have died for you, as he says in Hades, or to make sure that your trick succeeds at all costs? And I loved Sinon, and I love that he then took Sinon's name and brought it back to Ithaca and honored the dead in that way.
What's the right answer, though? Like, I mean, so yes, if he had given faith that Sinon was going to hold, maybe Sinon would, but maybe Sinon would have broken, and then, boom, they would have all been dead.
Well, it's the same question with, like, do you tell people about Scylla or not? Do you tell them about, all these things? It's like, do you trust your crew or not? That's the real question. And it's a leap of faith, as Calypso tells him as he's floating away on the raft. Sometimes you can't control what other people do, or if your scheme is going to turn out the way that it's going to turn out. But the leap of faith is important, because it's really it's really faith in humanity. It's faith in your fellow human to have your back and to do the right thing alongside you, right?
That's really good.
Jason, anything we missed on your front?
No, this is great. This is a delight. What a treat.
Yeah, this is so fun.
Really, really fantastic. Guys, who would Tilda Swinton play if we had to recast?
I mean, definitely the Cyclops, right? Like,
for sure.
I think it's not. I don't even know if it's close.
So that was my one honorable mention. Jason, of course, who
Bill
played
Irwin,
the Cyclops?
the goat.
Noodle, what's going on?
Mr. Noodle. Mr. Noodle's out there.
He's
with
back.
the Cyclossy. Yeah, was pretty great. Loved the Cyclops. Thought everything
the thing
about
of
it
his
worked.
face being twisted, like the nose and
Everything
the eye,
was great.
that was
great.
such a cool. I hadn't realized that that's what they were doing until I saw it more closely.
It was terrifying. Everything in there was
really
great.
scary.
It did seem fucked up that he poked him in the eye with that thing. I was like pissed on the Cyclops' behalf. So yeah, it was great.
Definitely.
In the poem, he gets it down and then he literally just sits there like on top of it, grinding it back and forth to make sure that he really.
Tough one.
And there's like language where it's like the eyeball pops and all the blood and the pus falls out. It's like, dang, Homer, why? Why do you have to be so graphic? Yeah.
So nasty.
I guess I'll go with Agamemnon. Let's just see her in that armor, and she can probably do a better voice than Ben Safdie. So that's a win above replacement for Agamemnon. What do you think, Bijani?
I would have loved to see her. Actually, honestly, as Eumaeus, I think that would have been really cool to see her as that. I loved Leguizamo's. I think I loved almost everybody. I think everybody was great. But it would be so great to see her play against type and do sort of the wise old man who's waiting on the shore. That or Circe is the obvious choice for me too. It's like she would have made a great Circe. But yeah.
Oh my God, nice. Travis Scott also really great. That did not did not take me out of it.
I loved it.
Yeah. I loved it. The bang and the staff.
I loved it.
Stuff.
I wanted to hear the whole poem. Yeah.
A face, a fleet, a war, a man.
I love when he says a trick.
Yeah.
I love the trick. It was great. I was like, this fucking bangs. This is great.
Yeah. And it's all the things that get broken, right? Like I think this to the script now, but Travis Scott really hammered home. Like these are things. The face was the cause of the war. Helen gets totally disfigured by her husband on the way back. The war was meant to be the supremacy of the Greeks, and yet the guest law of Xenia gets broken entirely, right? So it's like all these things that get broken that were meant to be immortalized in a song, but actually in reality, like Odysseus says at the end, were broken beyond repair, right? So yeah.
Fucked up. It's fucked up.
Shit is fucked up.
Yeah.
Guys, can we do some quick voicemails?
Let's do it.
All right. Here is our first voicemail.
Baby.
This
is Lizen.
That's
All
great.
right. Lizen is here. Here we go.
Hi, friends. This is Lizen. Okay, so Vage didn't use the Atreides sounder at some point in this episode. I want my money back. Just kidding. I do love you, H, and you can add it into this podcast after this voicemail if you skipped it, or you can add it for giggles a second time just right now. I'll wait. Yes, thank you. The Odyssey. I was once a very astute scholar of this text in the 2000s. Yes, I did push my glasses up my nose as I said that. So this was just like sinking into a warm bath, just particularly enjoying all of the discourse. This is a tale that folks have been talking about for 3,000 years, fighting about for 3,000 years. Let's go. My favorite thing about this entire film was Lupita's double performance. Sensational perfection, no note. Her Helen was a devastating horror, absolutely gutting. And her Clytemnestra, I am just weeping with her and then cheering her as she guts that man like a fish. A legend. Now, did I miss how dangerous Helen is in the actual text with her near drowning her house in magical Xanax?
Yes.
Nepenthe, look it up.
Yes.
She essentially roofies everyone so that they calm the fuck down, and it's an incredible scene. I missed her having that agency and that sort of danger, but God, I did love what they did with Helen in the film, because that is a face that once launched 1,000 ships, and girl, I would get on a ship right now. The House of Art podcast had a really exceptional point about how it's perhaps good that this film was so entirely sexless, because if you turn up the dial at all on the story, it is rape all the way up and all the way down. The sacking of Troy and onward, and even what happens with Calypso and Odysseus, it's just a very intense storyline about the lack of consent. And having studied the Euripides play, The Trojan Women, yikes, everybody yikes.
Yep.
On a more positive note, I deeply love Tom Holland's Telemachus. Telemachus is a really thankless weakling beta of a princeling. And he just doesn't have the complications of all of his scene partners. But he's so full of that sad hope and that tiny baby venom. And I just thought his glassy-eyed performance was so great. There's a lot of talk against his performance on the internet, but Telemachus just isn't this great, complicated man. He's a prince with daddy issues.
Yeah,
look at those
big time.
tears. I just loved it. I could talk for days. XOXO, Lizen.
What a great voicemail. My God.
Right?
Listen. Woo! She got it.
Yeah.
She nailed it.
We love Lizen. She's the best. She is a great reader, a great scholar.
You can
and always
definitely
has
tell.
something great to say. Yeah.
Really.
Atreides!
We did it. I don't normally listen to voicemail, but she gave me a little cue, so I was able to find it.
Oh, you were ready. Oh,
Put it in
good.
pre-post.
Wow. I thought she had produced her own voicemail there, and I was like,
No.
that's a risky behavior, because
No.
that's to get on your bad side as people start.
No,
producing
that was an
their own
assist.
voicemail.
That was an
Okay,
assist from
good.
H.
That's
make
great.
to make it magic.
An assist from me.
Thank you so much, Lizen. Here is our next voicemail.
This is your brother, Animal Mother.
Let's do.
First, there was the age of magic. People believed you could directly control the natural world, ritual, and spells. Magic was their first attempt at science, a system of rules that governed the universe. But magic didn't always work. This led to the age of religion.
Hello, animal friends and animal lovers. Is there anything scarier than a god? Any god? Sir Crispy leans into epic existential terror, telling a 3,000-year-old adventure filtered through a Lovecraftian sensibility. It's pretty hot. King Odysseus is the kind of guy that risks orgasmic auditory madness out of curiosity. He's a thrilling hero, not only because he's so capable, but because he brilliantly screws the pooch. Back when you could be om-nom-nommed by low-tier divine offspring, he dared to defy the famously petty Greek pantheon and spend a decade eating shit for it. If he had been more prudent, this wouldn't be much of a story, would it? Nobody sings songs about cautious people, so we celebrate this Olympian challenger because we would know better. He breaks the natural order of things, and the goddess of wisdom makes damn sure he atones. The lesson here is, if Zendaya pouts at you, you better drop whatever you're doing and pray for forgiveness.
Yeah, he fucked up.
Feel free to add some stuff. Which Greek god do you think is the max pettiest? Thank you all. See you inside a big-ass horse and get the chance, you filthy animals.
Which one is the most petty of the gods?
Hera.
I was
I
going to
was
say
gonna
Hera
say-
too, but I thought it was.
Yeah.
I wanted the lady to say it. No, I mean, like, in fairness, she didn't like her guy, but like they didn't have that kind of relationship anyway. They had they had like they were in a polycule pretty much by definition, like Hera and
And
Zeus.
also
So,
don't
like,
punish his victims for what he's
yeah,
doing.
exactly,
She's just
exactly.
constantly turning people into horrible things because
Into
they
other
were raped by
stuff.
her husband. Like, nah,
Yeah, it's not on them. It's crazy.
He's
I
kind
agree.
of a punk too, though. Zeus is kind of a punk in the sense of like he's literally the most powerful god in the world, and he just constantly has to prove it to everybody and have them, give him his hecatomb or whatever. So crazy, crazy business. Thank you so much, Animal Mother. Here is our next voicemail, Mr. Java. All right, Java, let's go.
Crowded halls with your space, and the Trojans can't escape their destiny. Say goodbye on the ships of the size. Who knows how many it will return? Let me be lost forever. 10 more years or ever. This odyssey goes on forever.
Wow.
Get to the queen and who is on the scene. Wanna know what's happening so far away. Stab a jump in the eye. Go to hell, be apprised. Everything will be taken away. Could we be lost forever for 10 more years? Or never, this odyssey goes on forever. The
my
hero of this odyssey, killing fools, he's on a spree. You are now a piece of mythology.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
Hail and well met, friends. Regale us with a feat of might worthy of the gods in the pantheon. What is something epic you've achieved in life, in a feat of physical, mental, or just emotional strength? Praise be unto thee, mighty hosts of a podcast, Odyssey.
Amazing. Stunning achievement.
Listen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Really blessed.
That was so good.
That's great.
When I was 40 back 16 years ago,
Jesus.
we had some friends of ours did a field day party at
Okay.
Memorial Park here in San Anselmo. And so it featured things like sack race and three-legged race, 30-yard dash, beer chug, a number of other items. And I won almost every single contest except for the beer chug, which I've never been that good good at doing that. But
That's awesome.
I tend to
That's
compete
awesome.
very, very hard for that kind of thing. And so
A field day is when you show up.
I did well. I did
That's
well.
great.
What about
That's
you,
great.
Bijani? What's your
I'm going to kick it to Jason because I'm still thinking about mine. I don't know if I've got one yet.
I don't know if I get to talk about enough my college debate history on this podcast, but I assume it's come up, but it doesn't come up often. But man, like I was really good at college debate for a hot minute. Like I was like I really was good at it, and like now view it as a source of evil in the world. But it was really fun to compete at the time. And I look that is like my favorite part of college, and I look back on with fondness. And I still have really close friends from that period of time, and some enemies. So it's great. You get a little bit of mix of
A
both.
little bit both. Yeah.
what was your hype song again? What was it?
Well, in high school, I was listening to like the best of, when I wasn't very good in high school, I was listening to like the best of Simon and Garfunkel. It really gets the blood pumping. To do some high school forensics.
The boxer. All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, Bijani.
Yeah, I'm not like a super competitive. I was never really into competitive sports very much, but I did win one race that I was really excited about. It was I'm not quite an official race, but my now husband and I, before we were married, we spent a year in Mongolia, in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, as journalists.
Wow.
And we decided before we went back to the U.S. that we were like, we got to go dog sledding in Mongolia. And they have these like beautiful huskies and other dog breeds that are, designed for below zero weather. I am a very much California born and bred girl. And so I was unfamiliar with the level of cold that this would have,
Jesus.
required.
Jesus.
Very much like, let's just do whatever. So we got trained for like an hour on how to like stay on the sled or whatever. And it was just the two of us and this guy, this crazy French guy who somehow found his way to Mongolia and was running a dog sledding expedition tour company out of like the hinterlands. Like it was really crazy. And we raced a little bit on the ice, and I kind of won that race a little bit, and then we were like, yeah, which was really fun. I mean, it was like maybe like a 5-minute race or something on the hour-long or a 2-hour-long thing, but it was great. I love beating my my wonderful husband Will, because he's an amazing athlete. And so the downside though was for the rest of the trip back, it was very windy and I could not stay. It was so cold I could not hold on to the sled or the leashes. So I kept getting like sent into the bushes so many times. Like I was falling off that sled and onto the ice probably like 10 times before we got back to the base camp. And I ended up getting frostbite.
Wow.
God.
From that one.
Oh my
God.
God.
Did you get cured or did like something have to be cut off?
Well, I lost several, like all 10 of my toenails fell off, if we're getting really graphic.
Oh my God.
And then some of my ear skin was like black, like almost like, you know, when you do a marshmallow and you stick it in the fire, it turns really black.
No.
So there's like some ear skin fell off, but the rest of me is great. Doing just great.
Jeez Louise. It took you a while to come up with a story, but you definitely win. Oh, that is bananas. Right on.
Victory, indeed.
It was a great victory. Well worth the frostbite.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Java. Here's our next voicemail. A truth sayer.
Hey, Alberia here. You know, Homer tells us that among all the trials of the wine dark sea, the most perilous is not the Cyclops, not the Sirens, not the wrath of Poseidon. It's the question no one thinks to ask until it's too late. Christopher Nolan has assembled one of the most formidable casts in recent memory for the Odyssey, just an astounding achievement. Among these are accomplished and versatile warriors of the screen, and among them lurks a hidden talent. One of them juggles. For today's Truthsayer, a simple question. Which of the co-stars of the Odyssey is a secret juggler? Time for the Truthsayer. Number 1, is it John Leguizamo? Or is it number 2, Lupita Nyong'o? Or is it number 3, Mia Goth? Or number 4, John Barenthal? Or number 5, Elliot Page? Which one of those 5 performers is the accomplished secret juggler? John Leguizamo, Lupita Nyong'o, Mia Goth, John Barenthal, or Elliot Page?
I do love the idea of John Barenthal juggling. I feel like that's the most aesthetically pleasing to me. John Barenthal, very funny as Menelaus in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, who could say where Odysseus is? Like this whole, maybe he's a prisoner. Like this whole thing, like he's doing the most, and I really liked it.
That was amazing.
I think Lupita, has got it.
Really?
I'm going Barenthal. I think she's got the
Barenthal.
skills. All right. What do you think, Bijani?
I was also going to say Lupita for sure. I just feel like
what if
that
it's
is...
all of them? What if it's all of them?
what if it is all of them?
No, this is a
It's
secret
trick
juggler.
question.
Not all, like anybody would say I could juggle a little bit, but to be a secret juggler, that's serious. All right, let's see.
All right, among the accomplished travelers of the wine dark screen, who juggles? It's number 5, Elliot Page. Elliot turned in a phenomenal performance in this film.
Yeah.
Reportedly, he learned juggling as a way to pass the time on the set of a film as a young actor. Chris Nolan doesn't allow cell phones on the set, maybe tennis balls? And that's all from me, a man of many turns, a complicated man, skilled in all the ways of contending, a trickster, but never a teller of falsehoods. Your faithful and frankly very weary Truthsayer.
Woo.
We appreciate your efforts, Biria.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Biria. Yeah,
that was great.
Really good one. Really good one. All right, here is Kev. Once again, it's Kev. That was not it. Here is Kev.
Escape Hatch, it's Kev here, back in the home studio to talk about Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Now, I'll be that guy and say that I am discussing The Odyssey at length on the next episode of Cinenauts with our dear friend Ketcher, who was just on the show, and our friend, the former disgraced producer of 70mm, Ian DeBorja. So that's coming up. Folks should subscribe to Cinenauts anyway, but that's going to be really fun, and I'll be talking about the movie a lot more there. Kev's question. The Odyssey is, at its core, if not anything else, a movie about a guy who has a really hard time getting home from work. So Kev's question, have you ever had a difficult commute, or do you know anybody who has had a difficult commute? And what was it and how did you or they deal with it? I can share that I worked on Long Island at an office. I was temping for some reason. I'll never really understand why I took this job. But the drive home eastbound on the Long Island Expressway every night was hell. It is the thing you hear about. It is the cliche. It is the opening of La La Land and Office Space and all this. The morning commute on the LIE, I would trade it for nothing except for maybe I'd take it over getting trapped in Scylla or Charybdis. Your commute stories, let's hear them with peace and love. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Once again, it's Kev's questions.
Dude, Scylla looked awesome in the movie, by the way. That was a really cool bit of business. Whatever the fuck that thing was
It seemed
crazy.
like Rocky adjacent to me. Like
it was wild. I don't know what was happening there. Also, I haven't read how they did that. There had to be a significant amount of CG for that. I mean, I just assume. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's right.
I've got one for this. So I was working at Google before they used to run shuttles to San Francisco. I was living in San Francisco and commuting to Mountain View. And my commute was literally a bus. And I didn't have a car yet. And I was like commuting bus to the Caltrain, which would take you down to like somewhere near Mountain View, but not near enough to campus you walk. And then you'd have to transfer from the Caltrain to like a shuttle that like not just Google, but a bunch of the companies ran, and it would kind of go around Mountain View and take you somewhere. And like it would take me like 2 hours each way, particularly in the winter when it was like rainy. It was absolute hell.
What time did you get there in the morning?
I mean, like it was tech, so like I would get there at 10 a.m. or something like that, like most days.
And what
So
time,
I would leave at
what time
leave
did
at
you
8.
leave?
I would leave like because we'd stay for dinner because they had dinner every night. So I'd stay until like 7 and get home at 9. So it was like,
Good dinner?
it was good dinner. They had good food then. And that's the thing is like, you can't have too much sympathy because I was not like temping enough. I was like, like vesting pre-IPO Google stock, but like, it still was a shitty, and it was also just like so aggressively anti-family. Like there's no way I could have done that if I had literally anyone else like in my life, but I was a very single person.
And did you go out in San Francisco when you would get back? Would you go to bars at that point?
Sometimes, sometimes because like it was, but yeah, sometimes, yeah.
I mean, April described working at Twitter like you would be working there in the morning, maybe get drinks in the afternoon, work some more, and then go to the bar and just like drink and tweet and be figuring shit out like at all hours. Like it just never stopped.
Yeah, Twitter, I mean, like even compared to the White House, I never worked anywhere as hard as Twitter just because it was like constantly on fire. And also my job was more important at Twitter than it was at the White House. So it was like, there was just never a time to be offline.
Crazy.
At Twitter, whereas like you could actually have, there were people with families at the White House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also commuted to Mountain View. That was my hell commute, but I did it from San Anselmo. So I had to drive. If I woke up, if I left at 6:15, it would take me an hour and 15 minutes. So I'd get there by 7:30, and then I would leave at 2:30, and it would take me an hour and a half. But basically every minute after 2:30 that I left would add 5 minutes to the commute. So like you had to get out of there. And I survived. This is when I first started getting into audiobooks. So I think I remember listening to Howard Zinn's A People's History of America.
Oh, classic.
Like 40-hour books. So I was just consuming nonstop. And so it was fine being in the car. How about you, Bijani?
Very boring. I don't think I've had nearly as bad a commute as either of you. So I got nothing on that one.
Maringo, except for that one time you were commuting in Mongolia.
Yeah, exactly. Except for when you lost all your toenails.
That was a tough one. All right, here's our final voicemail.
Hey, this is Corey calling from Austin, Texas about this year's The Odyssey by Christopher Nolan. This is a big deal. People are talking about this movie. They are like getting political about it. They are like arguing about how factual it is. And that's fucking weird. But that's where we are. 2026. Gotta love it. Haven't seen this yet, so I'll be looking forward to listening to the pod and hearing all the great things about it. I'm a little sus on this one. I'm not feeling the same excitement as a lot of people are. But hey, doing well at the box office. And, that Nolan, he directs a good movie. So I liked Oppenheimer a lot. That was good. So maybe this will be good like that.
Yeah.
I like his other movies too. Don't get me wrong. All right.
You'll like it, Corey.
Who would Tilda Swinton play? I don't know. Somebody. Y'all tell me. All right, love you guys. Talk to y'all next week.
Corey's gonna like this movie. He'll like he'll like it. It's a big Nolan spectacle, and that's like kind of like the good news in all of this is that it's great that this is like gonna be one of our most celebrated movies. Because it's this is what the movies should be. Like, good job. Like, you're saving us. Good job to Chris Nolan.
Good job. Yeah.
Go
Go ahead. No, you.
I was just gonna say, I'm just as an English teacher, I'm excited that like the book sales have
are
gone up
off the roof
significantly. Like people are buying them. They're really doing the thing. So I'm grateful for that.
Well, give
great.
people your recommendation. If somebody's like, oh man, I never thought I would do it, but I'm going to listen to or I'm going to read. Which one do you recommend for folks?
Definitely the Wilson. I mean, I love teaching it to my high school students because it's so accessible. Like she says, she is still a poet. She does this amazing work with the iambic pentameter. I think she centers a lot of the values that are inherent in the poem that maybe get overshadowed by the linguistic gymnastics that some of earlier translators do. It's just really, it's a great read. It makes it a lot more fun to read. And I think she's a brilliant scholar herself. So she's very intentional with her choices.
And folks should know that the story is as you saw in the film, it's pretty accessible.
Yeah.
And so like people think about this stuff as being really, really far out there. And it's a very different experience because you have all the gods in the midst of it. So it's like a very different evolutionary step from this film. So I think people can read or listen to it and get a whole nother kind of set of experience out of it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for a story to survive as long as this one has, like, and still be, relevant, taught, whatever, it's gonna have to be accessible. Like, it was meant to be like, something that people who couldn't read, like, could kind of pick up. So it's like, it doesn't feel like it's gonna be beyond an audience. I'm excited. How's the Wilson audiobook?
I like it. I think it's fine. I have a little bit of bias, I think, about the I love her as an actress. I don't think she does a great job with the audio book to infuse Wilson's language with the kind of like power and performance that I think it requires. But it's great. It's good. It's great. Yeah. If you were going to do an audiobook, not read anything, like I have to say Dan Stevens, who plays, he was the Downton Abbey guy, and he's been in like Legion and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
He does an amazing job with the Fitzgerald translation. And
it
really?
Is
just
okay,
like, it is like music to my ears. When I put it on while I'm cooking or whatever, I'm just like, my God, you're really like, great. You got the poetry so well. So yeah, if you're going to do an audiobook, I would say get the Fitzgerald translation with Dan Stevens narrating. If you want to read a physical copy or Kindle copy or whatever, pick up the Emily Wilson.
That's great. What a good thorough recommendation.
Good plug.
Yeah, good plug.
Good.
Use our Amazon affiliate link.
I was gonna say I'm waiting for my check from Norton over
from
here.
Big Homer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jason, what do you have to plug?
Really enjoying watching Dune with the kids. It's been very fun. It's interesting, like what they're both interested in. Griffin, I think, found a plot hole, which is like in the first movie, like, Jessica meets the shut up Mapes and she's presented with the knife, and then Griffin's like, what the fuck happens with this knife? Like, where's this knife? Where's this knife? Where is this Chris knife? Because it's like given to Jessica as a gift, like, and so it's like later it's like, is Paul using that knife? I'm like, I don't think so. Like, and so, but he's very focused on like what weapons people have, what time in the movie. And then Junie is very sandworm focused, I think, in her interpretation and appreciation of the movie. She really likes it when the sandworms are on screen. But like, they've both really been asking excellent questions about it this year. I mean, we've watched it together as a family before, but they're both like deeply into it right now, which is very interesting.
Awesome. That's so fun.
So we're going to like watch we watched it in like part one in 3 different sittings. And I think we'll do something similar maybe with part 2. And it's just like really interesting, like what they're picking up on. And yeah, I don't like, Matt asked, like, are you going to bring the kids to the premiere? And I think the answer is no, because like you have to understand, like the way in which my kids currently watch movies is they ask a question of me approximately every 10 seconds. And so it's just like, I don't know if that might drive Matt crazy in the IMAX viewing and also me in the first viewing. And so I might see the second viewing with them. Also, then I'll be able to assess like how freaky it is or whatever. But yeah.
Oh man! Prediction: Freaky.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for Dune now. Like, I actually, that was like the thing that, like, as I said, like from the Odyssey, I was like, all right, our guys got one though. Like, we got one coming still. We got a good thing coming. Like, we can win the day here with like some really crazy, weird science fiction things. And I do wish I'd love to see Nolan. I don't know what he wants to do next, but I'd love him to go back to science fiction in particular and do something really, like really conceptually difficult. Because that's my shit. That's what I like.
I would love to see that too. I am going to go on record now and say I think Denis is now cued to win his Oscar for Best Director. I don't know about Best Picture, but I think Denis is going to win because I don't think they're going to want to give it back to back to Nolan. I think they do want to give it to Denis. They know this is his magnum opus, and so I think this is the moment where he's going to get it. So I'm pretty stoked for our man Denny Newtown.
I would take the odds against that happening. It's just like
best adapted screenplay.
Like a science fiction movie winning, like a third part of science, and one that's going to be this weird, especially when it's going to be up against the Odyssey, which is just going to be like, this is what Hollywood is for. I think Nolan's getting all the statues again, but a lot of time left on the clock. We'll see.
Time will tell. Time will tell. Everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will see you. Peace.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you guys.
Cheers.
This was so fun.
The blast.